And to examine both diplomatic and military options, we have two of India's very well-known commentators who will run us through what really are New Delhi's choices. Mr. G. Parthasarathy, former diplomat, High Commissioner to Pakistan, and a man who is taken very seriously both in policy circles and by those who read his writings and watch him more on television. And General Ata Hasnain, a man and a soldier of great distinction, very highly decorated, has commanded the Uri Brigade himself, has commanded also a division on the line of control, and more importantly 15 Corps in Srinagar, which is really the theatre of current focus, as well as subsequently an important commentator on national security, particularly with reference to Pakistan. Mr. Parthasarathy, sir, my first question to you, there is a lot of talk about diplomatic options, and there is also a lot of talk about that we will finally get the world on our side. But I view this with a bit of concern and skepticism, particularly if you see how America is still reluctant to point fingers at Pakistan. America's track record vis-a-vis India has been very questionable. America has, as an important American commentator wrote a few days ago in an Indian newspaper, that indirectly funded Pakistan terror campaign by pumping money into Pakistan on the assumption that Pakistan will fight terror, but Pakistan actually used it to beef up its military. And it enjoys a certain kind of umbrella because of all the rattling and saber rattling that Pakistan does. And the world is still watching the space. So how is it we're going to get the world to turn the corner?
All I can do is recall my days in Moscow when the Bangladesh crisis broke. We were faced with an alliance of the United States, China and Pakistan. We had no friends. The Soviets, we had to bring them around. And even after we signed a treaty, Maruf, the Russians were always out talking to us, peace, peace, don't do anything. Till Mrs. Gandhi made it very clear to them that, look, I am going to do what I am going to do. Now you make your choices, but it is I who am in the firing line and I will decide what we need. I think a similar message has to go to the Americans. The message to the Americans should be, yes, we want peace, but there are limits to patience, and that we will join you in seeing what can be done, but we will take a decision that things are not moving, when things are not moving, and do what we have to do. And then you will have to decide what is in your national interest. Now, unless you talk to the Americans are a superpower. Unless you talk to them on those terms, they're not going to respect you.
Exactly, sir. In fact, that is the point a lot of people make. So, specifically, sir, where do you think we can turn the screws on the Americans?
I think the ultimate thing with the Americans is to tell them precisely what Mrs. Gandhi said, that we are at the limits of our patience, this endurance cannot go on, and while we appreciate your concerns, we hope you appreciate ours. And our feeling is that unless we do what we have to do, and there is a measure of retribution, then I'm afraid we may not be on the same road. Don't be afraid to tell them that, because the moment you sort of squirm and ask that you want to be on the same path as them, then you've had it. With a superpower, you always say, these are my constraints, this is what I require, I hope we can go along. If we have to move in different paths, I hope there are no hard feelings.
Right. You made this point even earlier, sir, and I think it is being appreciated at various levels. But General Hasnain, sir, I mean, you have enormous experience in this very focused theatre. But I want you to start from there, and then later I'm going to ask you the big picture also. More specifically, I find that there is still this wonderful ambiguity that was there in the time when you were in service. It has come up again. The DGMO has made that statement, and it's been made in the past also, and though I have great regard for the DGMO because he's my course mate and he's a man who chooses his words very carefully. But can you elaborate a bit more? We will hit back at a place and time of our choosing. What does it mean?
Thank you. And the DGMO is from the Royal College of Defence Studies like me, so I have a lot of time for him also. And let me therefore analyze his statement. I think he's telling you very clearly that there is a window, and the window is an extended window. We are not looking for something today or tomorrow. There is no need to panic. There is no need to hurry. I know that there is a cumulative effect of the public opinion which has been building up since Pathankot and even before that. But prudent leaders, strategic leaders, when they are dealing with hybrid warfare of this kind, do not respond immediately to public pressure. And that is the most important thing. What the DGMO in his statement has given to you essentially is a wait and watch. And in wait and watch, all the options are there. And this time the important aspect to look at, Maruf, is that there is no peace process in place. So you are not looking at the peace process going up in flames, etc. It's already in flames. So you've got an extended window, and in the extended window you're keeping Pakistan on tenterhooks. And how long can you keep them on tenterhooks and then strike back at some time is a question of your advantage.
So I go back to another point, and which is a point that I need your clarity on that, because you're a man who understands this issue. The Indus Waters Treaty. Now, there is a big school of thought in India which says that the treaty has stood the test of time of the 65 war, the 71 war, the Kargil standoff, and all terror attacks. And there is also a precedence in the world where treaties have been abrogated if the country concerned, and United States is a case in point, the country concerned's patience is exhausted with an international arrangement that is in place. And then you have a case of China, which is not even willing to accept international opinion and arbitration on the South China Sea. So what is so sacrosanct about the Indus Waters Treaty, and why is there a reluctance to twist Pakistan's tail with that?
Let me tell you, there are two answers to your query. There is enough we can do within the treaty to squeeze Pakistan. And secondly, this is not a bilateral treaty. And that is
it's a trilateral, because the World Bank was involved.
Absolutely, and there are provisions in it that in the event of non-compliance, it will go to the Security Council, it will go to international forums. So we should not, after Simla, give the Pakistanis the opportunity to use that. But as I said, I'll tell you a simple thing. Under the Indus Water Treaty, the waters of Ravi, Beas and Sutlej are ours.
I know.
We are not fully utilizing it.
I know. So I'm aware that
our
share of the waters,
we are not utilizing our full share. My point is, if you start seriously on this Indus Water Treaty, even to block their share, it will take time. Start with full utilization of what is our share. They are, as it is, overusing and misusing water. When we utilize the full shares of what is ours, they'll feel the pinch.
Right. General Hasnain, before we go in for a break, a short question, short answer. There is much talk about India to exercise the covert option. There is also talk about need to build up more covert capability. What are your broad thoughts?
You see, you have your response, should I say, spectrum, is a very, very broad spectrum. You have lots of options, because as I emphasized earlier, this is a hybrid thing which is happening against you. You need to hit back in the hybrid environment. Don't focus only on going on the conventional side of just a special forces strike deep inside and things like that. You look at it in the entire spectrum. Look at the possibility at the tactical, sub-tactical level to keep them on tenterhooks on the line of control. Look at the operational level where you can go and hit certain terrorist camps. If you can identify them, that's a difficult task. And the third thing is you keep the task open as far as the strategic strikes by your special forces are concerned. So all of them are there, and combine it with the capability development for your sub-conventional, for going in for covert.
Right.
Now, this is very important. Why I particularly want to outline to you. Mr. Modi, in his 15th August speech, 94-minute speech spoke for only 6 minutes about Balochistan, POK and Baltistan.
Right.
And in that effect of those 6 minutes was much more than all the 88 minutes that he spoke about the rest of
So
it.
exactly. I mean, these are force multipliers,
Absolutely.
if I was to use a military term. But we'll be back after a break to look more into what are the diplomatic options and what are the military options and what is probably going to be used quickly in the coming few weeks. Back after a break. Welcome back. We continue to have our two distinguished guests with us. Mr. Parthasarathy, sir, is there a possibility of Pakistan being finally put in the dock as a sponsor of terror, and what could India do to ensure that?
My point is that even putting them on the dock as a sponsor of terrorism gets you nowhere.
Right.
Because it depends on the follow-up of the powers to that, and they will keep ways out in any such thing. Maruf, let's be very, very clear. Pakistan always says, at least within their military, when they talk of strategic space to exploit India's vulnerabilities.
Very good points.
In effect, they want to make use of wherever we have problems. Now, let me put one thought to you. Their problems today are not on their borders with India. Their problems are with their western borders on Afghanistan. Firstly, Balochistan has borders with Afghanistan, and Baloch freedom fighters take refuge in Afghanistan. More importantly, the Pashtuns in the tribal areas have faced a horrendous last 2 years. The so-called Operation Zarb-e-Azab has resulted in some 800,000 refugees within Pakistan, internally displaced, nothing done for them, and another 50,000 have fled to Afghanistan. The fact of the matter is that though it started in the Khyber Agency, it went on to Waziristan, but it has revived in the Khyber Agency, meaning there are there is Pashtun anger. So the Pakistan military internally is fighting in 3 fronts.
Also, if I may bring out that the kind of proliferation of small arms in Pakistan is that almost the same number of people have weapons in the streets of Pakistan as the armed forces have.
I have been through the tribal areas, right, on the way, all the way up to the Khyber. Each village is a fortress.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the fact of the matter is, there is this huge proliferation of weapons. I'm quite.
How do we exploit that?
I'm coming to that.
Because Nawaz Sharif is anyway blaming us at the
UN.
I'm
quite willing to take all that blame. No inhibitions for me. The Pashtuns, therefore, are up in arms, the tribal areas, not necessarily in the settled areas, but in the tribal areas. But there is one thing which unites Pashtuns. It is they have never accepted the Durand line as the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Mr. Modi's comments on Balochistan have been electrifying and have electrified the Balochis.
We need to do more.
No, the real challenge is going to, there are not too many Baloch in the army. A large percentage, over 20 are Baloch. More than 20% is Pashtun. Now, I would urge that we work with Afghanistan and come out with the statement that we regard the Durand line as a disputed border.
Right.
Which means Pakistan can no longer talk of the sanctity of the Durand line. And therefore, it is going to spur Pashtun sentiments.
Another brilliant thought by you. Just
a minute. Don't forget, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Badshah Khan, one of the leaders of our freedom struggle, never recognized the Durand line. After he died, he wanted to be buried in Jalalabad. So we would also be doing Badshah Khan's memory a good service, and at the same time, put it in our maps.
Yes, yeah, of course. I think that's another brilliant thought by you. Earlier was publish a map with Balochistan as an independent territory, and now publish a map to say Durand line is not recognized. But General Hasnain, sir, what is the possibility of a naval blockade of Pakistan's coastline?
Maruf, you have covered the maritime domain. In fact, you answered your question. I would entirely agree with it. You've forgotten the air arm also. We have great superiority in the air arm, right? And we should make sure that we exploit that superiority also. So let me just briefly take you through this entire thing. On the land front, definitely you're already seeing some kind of a pre-mobilization taking place in Pakistan without a single shot being fired anywhere. Yesterday the airspace over Skardu has been blocked. Yesterday some movement along the national highway from Lahore to Karachi is taking place. So obviously things are getting worried. I saw this in 2008 also happening in the same manner. We need not do very much. This is a good time to play psychological warfare. And we should get adept at that. But that is a mind game that we have to learn to play. This is what Pakistan has been playing with us for too long. Threats are not going to be a matter by itself. You have to walk the walk. And in those ways, I think the Navy is a great idea. Sail out by a couple of ships, etc., is going to make a difference. Let's see where the Pakistan Navy actually is, because that is the domain in which they are the weakest completely. As far as the air is concerned, I would go to the extent of even looking at potential surgical strikes by the Air Force as some potential sites which have been identified. Look at all these domains, and then let's see how much they react. And this bluff of tactical nuclear weapons, let's see how far they can take it.
Right, very good points. In fact, it's something that has come out by some of the experts, and you are one who has dismissed this bluff from day one, and I kind of second this with you have all along, that wargaming has shown that Pakistan does not consider using nuclear weapons with India in a hurry. Tactical nuclear weapons, as you yourself had brought out, that they will only consider using that when territory dear to them begins to fall, largely in Punjab. If they do that, they will end up destroying Punjab, which is the home of half or more of their generals and their families. So what about this nuclear threshold and nuclear saber rattling? How seriously do you take it?
Let me put it this way. I have known people in their strategic forces command. And let me tell you, they had a really bright general. Also from Uttar Pradesh, in General Khalid Kidwai, and he enunciated their red lines. And I'm quite clear in my mind from what he said, that unless you are taking over large parts of the urban areas, unless you are drawing the Pakistan Army Reserve into battle and destroying it, they are not going to be in a rush. Look, the Punjabi Pakistani generals lead too good a life, enjoy the good things in life. They are not going to sacrifice it prematurely till their very existence is at stake. So we have a large amount of strategic space to utilize below the nuclear threshold.
As Kargil conflict also showed.
No, Kargil was just where we were. I am still saying, you spoke of cold start. There are areas, provided you recognize Kidwai's red lines and you understand what he means by that, and where they can use tactical nuclear weapons, maybe in parts of the desert, but certainly not in Punjab. The fact of the matter is, utilize that. But one little point. You know, I remember a Director General of the ISI when I was in Pakistan being asked, what is your aim? He said, our aim is to weaken India from within, and we can do it.
Yeah.
Now, I think we're
short of time.
I think we need to weaken them from within in Punjab, in Sindh, not in Punjab, in Sindh, in Balochistan, and in the frontier province. And we can do it.
Interesting. I think there are some internal weaknesses we have to also. On a more military context, Uri has shown some of the signs of the gaps that weren't filled in post-Pathankot, post other attacks. You've been a commander on the ground, 15 Corps, 19 DAF, 12 Brigade, and you've been an infantry soldier through and through. You and I are both infantrymen, sir. Our heart goes out to the guy, the boots and the bayonet. The government hasn't done enough to equip him, to prepare him for all the eventualities that he faces and he battles. A Rafale deal is one thing. Howitzers is another thing. Aircraft carriers and Navy is all Hathi ke daant. The reality is the man on the ground. Do you really feel he's prepared to counter the next attack?
Very good question. And let me tell you, after the Uri happened, I spoke to some people on the ground there, and I asked them when was the last time they saw a new thermal imager coming to them. They said, we haven't seen one. 2001 was the last time when thermal imagers came in on the line of control. Today, thermal imagers have been borrowed from the desert formations to bring them in. The batteries of that time are today holding power for 2 to 3 hours. What we desperately need is a absolute upgrade of the infantry. And let me tell you, Maruf, you've come and visited me when I was there. You can blame the government on one side. You have to blame ourselves also. And blaming ourselves basically means mindsets. We are strong in front. Everything is in the line of control. We've got all our equipment, whatever we have with us is all placed there. We are strong in the hinterland with the Rajput rifles, etc. There is a grey zone in the middle. People like me are to blame perhaps also. Uri, Tangdhar, etc. are considered to be havens of peace. But you can't leave your rear unguarded. You can't do this with minimal strength because all your strength is on top. So obviously there's something wrong in your doctrinal aspect where you have to correct this.
Right, very interesting. Lots of important points have come out in this short, very crisp discussion, and as always I'm going away feeling I wish we had more time. But one or two quick points is, one is that we need to tell the US that we'll either do it our way if you don't come along, or it is good for you and your reputation if you now stand on India's side. And equally importantly, we need to call Pakistan's bluff on the nuclear issue. And finally, and most importantly, there are a range of hybrid operational options available to us. But most importantly, we need to strengthen the man on the ground. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us on the show. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, goodbye and thank you.